Salams, you're watching People's Dispatch, and this is the daily debrief coming to you from our studios in New Delhi with me, Siddhantani. First up on the show today, the United States has approved the potential sale of over $600 million in new weapons to Taiwan. This includes missiles for its F 16 fighter fleet. The arms sales are likely to further sour already tense relations between Washington, D.C. and Beijing. Beijing has, of course, demanded that arms deals with Taiwan be stopped. The Pentagon said on Wednesday that the US State Department approved the potential sale of over 300 missiles, including advanced medium range air to air missiles as well as air to ground missiles. For more on this story, we're joined now by Anish. Anish, relations between Washington and Beijing not anywhere close to the best at the moment, and this deal not likely to make things any better.
I mean, if only anything, it's going to make it worse at this point because this is one of the things that China has repeatedly asked the United States to refrain from doing, which is to continue arms deals with Taiwan or the government in Taiwan, at least. As we have to be very careful on how because we have to also talk about the fact that these arms sales are being done by what the United States does not consider to be a state actor under technical terms. It does not recognize the government in Taiwan or the state or the constitution that it is based on. So the whole point of having arms sales at such an extensive level is always, begs the question of why the United States does it so often, especially when it is part of and it considers the One China policy as paramount when it comes to questions of sovereignty in the region. This is about $600 million. This year, we are expected to see at least $10 billion of arms sales and aid and loans to Taiwan as part of the recent defense bill that the U.S. Congress had passed, the Democrat-run U.S. Congress. We have to remember, not the current Republican one. So had passed last December. So this sort of heavy, disbursement of money, aid, and weapons to a country, to a government that it does not really consider as part of a state to begin with, is something always going to be a problem, especially a part of an island that is already being claimed by, whose sovereignty is already being claimed by another major superpower, is always going to create more provocations and more tensions in the region. So this is something that we need to always keep an eye on. Like the tensions are going to keep going. We already saw recent incursions by the Chinese military, which are only going to add fuel at this moment. But China's basic demand remains that it needs the United States to stop making these arms deals first in the first place.
What has been the reaction, Anish, to the announcement of the latest deal? And is there any? So we've seen cancellation of talks and visits in the recent past. Is there any dialogue happening between the two superpowers?
The dialogue on Taiwan or anything right now seems a little far off because one of the basic necessities of a dialogue is that you try to maintain status quo as much as possible, right? You do not try to create more provocations, no matter what justifications you give. You understand very well certain things are provocative, certain deals and contracts are going to be provocative in the region. So if you want to actually have talks and negotiations happening, then you really need to make efforts on your on these matters first. But that is not happening on the side of the United States, at least. The sort of last week itself. So before this deal, last week we actually saw a group of lawmakers, congressmen, visiting Taiwan and then going back clamoring for more, arms deals, and speeding up all the disbursement of not just aid money but also weapons. So this shows, and this was a sort of bipartisan call. We have to remember there were Democrats and Republicans in these calls. So this is always a bigger problem because you see the US establishment, the US government being entirely united no matter which side of the aisle they
Hmm.
sit in.
Hmm.
And this, it is clearly visible when we see the fact that this is also a continuation of the Trump era policy
Hmm.
under the Biden administration. Trump administration had spent about $18 billion in arms sales with Taiwan. We are going to have an even bigger because, as I said, there has already been a sanction $10 billion in aid and money, loans, and arms deals with Taiwan just for this year.
Hmm.
So we are going to see a bigger level of arms race happening in the region, and for trade. And so the reaction obviously is not going to be anything that will be civil, obviously, from the Chinese side. As much as China, foreign policy wise, values diplomacy and negotiations, it has red lines, it has boundaries and limits to the civility, and obviously the recent incursions in the region, military incursions around Taiwan in its defense airspace,
Hmm.
shows that it is not going to take these arms deals lightly.
All right, Anish, thanks very much for that update. Israeli parliament member and National Security Committee chief Zvika Fogel openly demanded burning Palestinian villages on Monday. This has led to international outcry. Opposition leader in the Knesset, Yair Lapid, who is, of course, former prime minister, said Fogel must be boycotted in parliament. The statements and these events follow attacks by dozens of Israeli settlers on Palestinian homes as well as other properties in the town of Huwara. In the widespread arson, another Palestinian has been killed, taking this year's toll to above 60. Two Israeli settlers were earlier killed in a shooting attack in Huwara. As violence continues to escalate, we talk to Abdul Rahman about the latest. Abdul, good to have you back on the show with us. Take us through events from Sunday onwards, Abdul, please.
Well, it is well reported now and is well known that on Sunday there was a settlers' attack, a mass attack on a Palestinian town in Hawara near Nablus, where one Palestinian was killed and a number of Palestinian houses were burnt, their property, Palestinian properties were burnt, and so on and so forth. All this happened under the watch of the Israeli security forces. Since then, it has been 4 days, and no Palestinian business has been allowed to operate in the city, in the town, and there has been some kind of siege in and around that town. Israel has been claiming that the accused of a shooting incident in which two Israelis were killed came from that particular town, and therefore the movement is restricted and so on and so forth. But the settler violence has basically led to an explosion of political debate and discussion and reactions from all across the world. Uh, Meanwhile, on Wednesday, Israel's finance minister, who is a long time settler leader and considered to be the one of the founders of the extremist right-wing groups in Israel, Bezalel Smotrich, basically came out with a statement saying that he supports the idea of erasure of Huwara town, and instead of private players, meaning settlers, doing it, the state of Israel should do it. Since this statement, of course, sounds basically it seems like justification for ethnic cleansing and massacre of Palestinians. There has been angry reactions from Palestinians calling Bezalel as racist and so on and so forth. It has also led to emergence of greater concerns about the overall approach of the present Israeli government vis-a-vis the occupied territories.
Right. At the same time, Abdul, there's also the process of enacting a new law, a worrying new law that includes the death penalty and is outright discriminatory and racist.
Yeah, exactly. If you see yesterday itself, Israeli parliament, of course, this was the first reading. There are two more readings to go, but has accepted a draft bill which basically talks about death penalty in terror cases. And we know when Israelis are talking about terror cases, they are only referring to Palestinians being basically fighting against the occupation in one way or another. So whatever way they fight for Israel, that is terrorism. And therefore, the bill says that whoever was involved in killing an Israeli citizens during such act will 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 be basically will get capital punishment. One should remember that Israel does have capital punishment in its law, but it has hardly been used. In last 75 years, there are only two instances in which death penalty was used against people, and Israel has on various international platform has been vocal about death penalty against death penalty, and therefore this revival of the death penalty itself creates a question mark on the overall Israeli commitment. But some of the critics have also pointed out that whether there is death penalty or not, Israel is has become an expert of carrying out extrajudicial killing of Palestinians. For example, first 2 months of this year has seen more than 65 Palestinians been killed in the occupied territories, West Bank and East Jerusalem. And last year, according to the UN, was the deadliest year for the Palestinians since 2005. So one can question whether this death penalty provision will make any difference or not. But at least on the larger issue of Israel's commitment on international forums, the provisions of human rights, and its susceptibility towards discriminatory practices. Such provisions will lead to further human rights violations and a kind of establishment of apartheid regime, formal apartheid regime in Israel.
All right. Thanks, Abdul. I'll ask you to hang around because we're talking about Pakistan. Two provinces in Pakistan going to elections within the next 90 days, and we'll get your inputs on that story as well. And finally, Pakistan's Supreme Court has ruled that elections must be held within 90 days for the provincial assemblies in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The 5-member top court bench was led by Chief Justice Umar Ata Bandial and gave the decision by a 3-2 split verdict on Wednesday. Abdul is still with us and has more details on this story. So, Abdul, the Supreme Court, the top court in Pakistan, making in its statement, saying quite unequivocally how important elections are and how important it is to hold elections on time. What do you make of this from a political point of view?
Well, it seems that Pakistan Tehreek PTI, basically the Imran Khan's party, is the happiest group in Pakistan at this moment, because if we remember, it was a political move, given the fact that PTI had majority government in both the provinces, following the no confidence motion against Imran Khan government, and the political developments unfolding following that event led to PTI asking and both these governments to resign. And the overall political game was that this will create a pressure on the Pakistani state to kind of hold the national elections as early as possible. But that did not happen for various reasons. It has been a long, which we don't have time to go into all that at this moment. But it did not happen, and therefore it seemed that these provinces will not see election until the national elections, which are due next year. But now that the Supreme Court has cleared, and in fact very clearly has asked for elections within 90 days, it seems that Imran Khan has got an opportunity, and his party has got an opportunity to prove its electoral strength and its popularity once again before the national elections. So in that way, it will be a kind of a massive show off, because it is most likely that PTI will emerge victorious in both the provinces.
Right. And in terms of leading up to that national election, Abdul, what are the key issues that we're seeing emerging in Pakistan?
Well, the most important issue at this moment is, of course, the Pakistan economy. This is almost it's really a bad situation at this hour in Pakistan, because I don't have any other word to describe it. There has been the people in over Pakistan are suffering from price rises of basic commodities, and the state does not have enough revenues to kind of do any kind of thing. And the loan, which was considered to be IMF loan, which was considered to be some kind of would provide some kind of relief, is not helping in any way. So that is one major issue, which and Imran Khan will have, you can say, advantage for the fact that by the before he left, before he was removed from the prime ministership, the Pakistan economy was not in such a bad shape. So within last few months, Pakistan economy has gone back to worse, and that seems to provide advantage to Imran Khan. So apart from that, of course, the rising cases of violence, terrorist attacks in different parts of Pakistan, carried forward, of course, by Pakistani Taliban, is one another major issue which is going to be raised in the elections. Another major concern, of course, is the flood relief activities, which are not happening as per the popular expectation. And Pakistan is lagging behind, despite the fact that there has been enough aid pledges made by different group of countries. It seems that on the ground it is not being executed well. The mismanagement of the flood and the flood relief, of course, will help. It seems.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Daily Debrief from Abdul, myself, and the entire team here at People's Dispatch. Thank you very much for watching. As always, we invite you to head to our website, peoplesdispatch.org, for more details on all of these stories and the other work we do. Also, don't forget to give us a follow on the social media platform of your choice. We'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.